I'm Shaan Hurley. I'm here with Robert Green, a well-known CAD consultant, and we're talking about different things in a CAD office, CAD standards, CAD management, all different types of issues. One of the things I wanted to talk about was what are the easiest and the cheapest ways to implement standards? Because some people may already have these tools at their fingertips, they just don't know how to use them or that they're there.
Yeah, very true. I mean, if we use AutoCAD, say, as a common denominator, we can look at some of the things in there are extremely powerful. I would think tool palettes probably have to lead the way. It's a way for you to take content like a block or a standard drawing form, something like that. Your user loves it because they just drag and drop and they're done. And what's going on behind the scene for the CAD manager is they've controlled layers, post-processing of Lisp routines or DVB routines, anything they may want to do.
And the block.
Yeah, and the block gets pulled in itself, and your user never had to know where the block resided. They never had to know anything about it. They just had to know how to design. And isn't that what you hired a design professional for? Did you hire them to have an IT degree, or did you hire them to design a building?
Matt Murphy always talked about the ancestral blocks, and these are the ones that live out, on X drive in a certain structure, and they're named 123-DC95.
Right.
That kind of stuff for a certain block when you're looking for an isometric of a gate valve kills an office. Whereas on a tool palette, it can say 12-inch gate valve, side view plan, or plan view, and they don't even have to know where it's from. That's
true.
Just one of the examples. I mean, and it takes very little investment.
Yeah, and nor do you need to be a programmer to use it.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of CAD
drag, drop.
And even as a CAD manager to set them up, I don't really need to understand that much about the inner workings of AutoCAD, so long as I have a good working knowledge of layer dependencies and scaling factors and that sort of thing. It's easy. They're easy to deploy via the options inside of AutoCAD's configuration, so it's easy to network them. It's easy to have different profiles for different design groups so that you can have context-sensitive things. It's probably, from a standpoint of you already have it, it costs nothing.
Yeah.
Use it, and users like it. It's not something that you're having to force feed down their throat to get them to use it. Very intuitive, and they just grab it and they
You can do it for different clients too. I mean, it is really simple to set up. I mean, you're talking just for a basic project, you could do it in under 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
Thinking this out, and then deploy that out to your users in another hour, and off you go, and you haven't had to buy any more software.
That's exactly right. And one thing that the CAD manager can do, which is kind of tricky, but I always advise it anyway, is if you're going to standardize your blocks, as an example, and you're going to palletize them, use that as the excuse to clean house, to go out and find all the rogue content that's not supposed to be there. And really go ahead and take the opportunity now while you're organizing to get things clean so that you don't have to go back and do that again later.
Exactly. Make sure they're not corrupted or have weird things in them, because once you pull those in, and I've seen these problems, you bring in a title block or something like that, and they can't figure out how come they're getting AEC object enablers loading or weird things are happening in their files, and then you go, well, what's the common denominator? Oh, you're all pulling in the same block.
Right. Yeah, and just from a consistency point of view, if for no other reason, then you can deploy it through the network and get everybody on the same page. That in and of itself it would argue for the approach. So that's a great way to do things. If you can program at all, or even if you can just do basic macros inside of CUIs, that's another very cost-effective, relatively straightforward way to customize things. Toolbars, users like to have toolbars that they can drag around, use things like dimensional annotation. Right. Put a few custom little dimensional routines on your dimension toolbar so people can drag that around near the geometry they're working with. Users eat this up, and it's not that hard to do. And it gets really to the old adage, which is if you make it simple, they'll use it. Right. So if your standards are burned into these types of devices to where it's easier to be standard than not to be, problem solved.
The tool pilots, I mean, you could insert a hatch and it goes on a layer. But I've seen people actually write Lisp routines, so anytime they use the dimension command, it throws it on a dimension layer. And then our vertical products like AutoCAD for Architects and MEP, they have a lot of that built in. So you have built-in standards for the layers and things like that.
And so really what you're doing now is you're getting back to that idea of colliding good process with tools. And since people are using the correct tools, the right process, the standards just happen.
Right.
So we really don't even have to have a discussion about standards anymore. And
hopefully
that's it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where all CAD managers want to get.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.